Hello everyone, Battlebots Explained here, and the championship bracket is finally here. The top 32 has been revealed, and yeah, it's it's been an amazing season so far, guys. The was supposed to be 2020 season, but ended up being just between 2020 2021, and so a lot of people just refer to it as Season 5. I'm going to refer to it as Battlebots Season 5. So guys, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the top 32 bracket for Season 5, and I'm just going to go over the bracket, my thoughts on it, and my predictions, as well as a minor rant on a few minor things. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, also consider subscribing, and we're going to get right into this. So here's an overview of the bracket. I got this from battlebots.com. They have the online bracket. You guys can go and take a look at it yourselves if you want to. They also have a downloadable, printable bracket for you to fill out your predictions. What I'm going to do for this video, guys, is I'm just going to go over a brief rundown of the bracket as a whole, and then I am going to go into a little bit of detail on my predictions for each fight, or at least for the round of 32. I couldn't do it for the entire bracket, but because these tournaments can just be so incredibly unpredictable, guys, I'm just going to do it one round at a time. For example, round of 32 starts with the 32 bots, the round of 32, then the round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, final, you get it. So this episode, we're just going to go over the round of 32. And we're going to start this off in Section 1. They sectioned off the bracket into 4 different sections. And for Episode 1, I believe, of this main tournament, I know it's not Episode 1 of the new season, but, you know, it shows here the dates of when they're going to drop, at least in the US, in the Eastern Time, February 18th. I'm recording this on February the 12th. So, in other words, just the day after the last main episode of the preseason dropped. So, you can see here it says February 18th, all these fights on the left, and then on the right is February the 25th, so 1 week after the next episode. And it has dates for like when the round of 16 happens, when the round of 16 airs, and where the quarterfinals airs, etc. So I'm going to start with this side first because these are the fights that will happen first, February 18th, and then I'll go over to the other side. But this is just an overview and my predictions for the whole round of 32. Let's start off with Hydra versus Hypershock. I'm just going to work my way down. So, if you guys saw the BattleBots basement fights, the little grudge match that happened in 2019 between Hydra and Hypershock, that basically sums up my opinion of this fight. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be this is going to be a real quick fight. Hydra's going to make short work of Hypershock, and barring some unforeseen crazy glitch in the Matrix that happens, there is no way on Earth that Hypershock is going to beat Hydra. Although, to Will Bell's credit, it is interesting that Hypershock did manage to get into the main season. I mean, they haven't gotten into the main round of 32 or round of 16 since way back in Season 2, 2016, ABC Season 2. That's a while back, guys. That's way back in 2016. We're in 2021 now. So it's been a long time since we've seen Hypershock in a main bracket. And while it's good to see them here, this is where my little rant begins. Let's talk about P1, shall we? So P1 started this year. They had a decent win against Kronos that they've shown in some, in some compilations and some footage. And then they had a tough fight with Copperhead, lost that, and then they put on a display against Smee, beat the living heck out of Smee, and they didn't get into the round of 32. Instead, Hypershock got in. Selection committee, please explain why in the actual heck you did that, because I'm looking at a 2-1 bot in P1 that had 2 good wins and 1 destructive loss, but still that's 2 good wins, versus a bot that has 2 really, really bad losses and 1 win against a pipe frame. Tell me how that makes sense, because my mind just can't fathom it. So but I personally believe that at the very least P1 should be ranked 32 or even a little bit higher, but minimum 32 and should have gone up against Hydra. Would P1 have beat Hydra? No, not at all. But I think they deserve to be in the tournament more than Hypershock does, but that's just my opinion. So, end of the day, I think that Hydra is going to move forward and beat the heck out of Hypershock, although it's interesting to see a rematch of them, and hopefully this time Will Bales is not out of the arena himself like they did back in 2019 during their grudge match. By the way, if you guys are wondering what my opinion is of Hydra being number 1, I don't have that much of a problem with it. When the bracket first debuted and I got to look at that, I was a little bit upset. But then I thought about it and I realized, you know what, it's actually not too bad. Hydra, yes, they had the controversial decision against Huge, which I may not even do a fight analysis on because that was not really a fight. But in their first fight, they did extremely well against the last season's finalist. And then against Uppercut, they threw Uppercut everywhere. And both of those were very, very impressive fights. And so, while I can definitely understand why people aren't really happy about Hydra being number 1, a lot of people aren't, it's not that big of a deal for me personally. So I think Hydra beats Hypershock, no problem. Then let's have Malice versus Gigabyte. Okay, so let's talk about these two bots briefly first. So Malice is a bot that has done decently well in Battlebots so far, despite being kind of a new design. Malice is a horizontal drum, effectively, and that's a really, really big spinner on, and it's very heavy. It's also an extremely compact bot that actually has way more drive power than you would think a bot like of its size and style would have. And they're also decently well driven too, and in theory, hopefully they'll be pretty durable. Their durability has not really been tested that much so far, but still I think they would be reasonably durable. The problem is they're going up against Gigabyte. Now the Gigabyte team, I've mentioned this in my fight analysis videos before, but they've had really, really good days and really, really bad days. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes Gigabyte has a great day where they drive perfectly and everything works great and they're one of the most destructive full body spinner around, and other times they have really bad days where the driver drives into the wall and they just break. So what do I think is going to happen now? Well, I see no way, personally, that Malice is going to win this fight, and here's why. For one thing, Matt Maxim, who is the new driver of Gigabyte, had a lot more time to practice, and also he had a fight against Extinguisher and also against Claw Viper, and he managed to drive well enough to wreck both of them. Claw Viper, in particular, was way more impressive in my opinion, and it's really great to see that Matt Maxim is starting to get used to how Gigabyte maneuvers and drives, and I think the team is prepared to take on most opponents, and really I think that Malice is a perfect opponent for Gigabyte. It's one of the easiest opponents for them to deal with in this entire field, in my opinion, because it's a really small, compact bot. I think Malice can't even be that much bigger than Minotaur at all. It may be even smaller than Minotaur. If I'm wrong about that, guys, feel free to correct me in the live chat or the comments, but I think Malice may actually be smaller than Minotaur. It's really, really compact. So with Malice, I see exposed wheels. I don't see a wedge. I don't believe they have a wedge. And there's just no way that they're going to be able to get through Gigabyte's shell. I think that after a few big impacts, Malice's weapon's going to go down, or they're going to lose a wheel. And even if they manage to disable Gigabyte's weapon, Gigabyte's a full-body wedge, effectively, once the spinner goes down. And Malice, not having a way to get underneath them, should not be able to do anything to Gigabyte from that moment on. I just think that Gigabyte's going to wipe the floor with Malice, but it was great seeing Malice this season, and if they do lose this fight, it's a good fight to lose. You're up against a legend in Gigabyte, and it's great that you were able to come to Battlebots and get into the top 32 when so many other bots were not able to. And so, it's kind of sad to see Malice go because I really think they're going to lose to Gigabyte, but we'll see how this fight goes, but I'm going to say Gigabyte wins this fight. Then we have Whiplash and Huge, and I'm going to say this is going to go exactly the same way as it did in the round of 16 back in 2019, where the Whiplash team, Matt Vasquez, I've said this many times before, he's an amazing driver, probably one of the top 5 drivers in my opinion. in Battlebots. And he already defeated Huge last season. He had this really tall armor setup, and he was able to control Huge around the arena very, very well and won on a decision. Huge couldn't really do anything to Whiplash in that fight. Huge, on the other hand, he's kind of had a really, really tough season this season. He almost went 0-3 actually until he fought against Kraken, and even then, it was a really, really, really tough decision that Huge had against Kraken. And I'm honestly amazed that Huge made it into the top 32. It's good to see them here. I'm just kind of amazed personally that they actually made it. So, what do I think of this fight? I think it's going to go exactly the same way as this fight went back in 2019. That is, Whiplash is going to control Huge all around the arena, and there's not going to be much Huge is able to do. Huge is going to land at least like 3 or so big hits throughout the fight, I'm guessing. I just don't see Huge winning this rematch, and I'm put Whiplash to move forward to the round of 16. Now let's talk about Valkyrie SubZero. Now that I think about it, I probably should be zooming in a lot more on these photos, shouldn't I? So now let's talk about Valkyrie and SubZero. This is going to be an interesting fight. I do know that SubZero does have anti-spinner plow because they used it last season against, who was it, 4 Horsemen and also Gemini. And so far this season, SubZero's reliability problems have not been that bad, with the exception of their first fight against, who was it, Jackpot. However, I don't know if SubZero is going to be able to tank all the hits from Valkyrie, though. Because SubZero, at least the new version of SubZero, so far has not fought a really good horizontal spinner that I'm aware of. Gemini does not count. The 4 Horsemen do not count. I'm talking about a real horizontal spinner, a dedicated horizontal spinner. Valkyrie's a perfect test for them. I personally don't think SubZero is going to be able to survive because eventually Valkyrie's going to clip a wheel or hit something and break SubZero. But there is the odd chance, though, that SubZero maybe could get lucky and score a really good wedge to spinner collision that might just break Valkyrie. Now, even taking that into consideration, Valkyrie has been, in my opinion, okay, so they said that Copperhead, Battlebots themselves said the Copperhead pretty much was the most improved robot this season, and I do agree. I say that Valkyrie is a very, very close second. Because Valkyrie is a bot that the past several seasons had a lot of weapon power, but it would go down after a few hits or after some big collisions. They didn't have the best reliability or durability. And then this season, I mean, Rotator versus Valkyrie, that fight, Valkyrie managed to outlast Rotator, the bot that KO'd Tombstone last season. And that really, really impressed me, and I don't think that SubZero is going to be able to outlast Valkyrie. I like both of these bots, honestly, and I wish that they both could go on, but I'm going to have to put Valkyrie as moving forward to the next round. Now we have, so all that I just mentioned, all this up here, this was technically section 1 of the bracket, by the way. Now let's move on to what's officially section 2, and let's start with Uppercut versus Hijinks. I'll say this, both of these bots do deserve to be in the round of 32. Uppercut because he mauled Gemini through one half of it out of the arena, then tore poor Sawblade to pieces, and then lost a really tough fight against Hydra, but still showed it had amazing durability, though. And it's also one of my favorite bots this season, and I genuinely think Uppercut could potentially go all the way. Then we have Hijinks, a bot that is well driven by Orion Beach, who also built Scorpios previously and Electric Boogaloo, both bots that did defeat Ray Billings and Tombstone, by the way. And also, judging Hijinks by its own merits, it did have a good KO against Tracer, and it also defeated Chomp. And when the weapon does get up to speed, it's a really, really good weapon and has a lot of energy. Here's why I don't think there is any way possible Hijinks is going to win this fight. Spin up time. Spin up time, spin up time, spin up time. Hijinks has a powerful weapon, yes. It takes that thing ages, unfortunately, to get up to speed. Uppercut takes like a second. And considering that Alex Satori of Uppercut is going to box rush Hijinks from the moment the light turns green, Hijinks honestly might be out of the arena as soon as the clock starts, honestly. I'm not even kidding. Of course, anything can happen, but Uppercut has shown it has insane reliability, durability, an amazing driver in Alex Satori, and I just don't think that Hijinks can win this fight. The only chance Hijinks has, I think, is Uppercut will go with their anti-spinner wedge for this fight. The only thing that Orion Beach can really do to stop the box rush is lead with this hinge wedge point, this whatever this bracing wedge is on the rear of Hijinks. Maybe get underneath Uppercut, give them enough time to spin the blade up to speed. But even then, it's still going to be a really tough fight, and I personally don't think Hijinks will win. I'm going to put Uppercut as winning this fight. Then we have Beta and Ribbot. This is going to be another interesting one, guys, because it depends entirely on what configuration that the Ribbot team decides to put on their bot. I'll say this, if the Ribbot team decides to be smart in this fight, they will put on the vertical spinner. If they decide to be not smart in this fight, they will go with the undercutter. As for Beta, this is going to be a fight that, again, depending on Ribbot's configuration a lot. I personally think that John Reed is a better driver than the driver of Ribbot. Not to discount the driver of Ribbot or anything, I think he's a good driver. But John Reed is really on a whole new level of, or on a completely different level of crazy, aggressive, throw yourself at him, and just, John Reed's an amazing, amazing driver. He just is really, really stingy generally about firing the weapon. Here's one reason, in my opinion, why Ribbot could win this fight if they go with the vertical spinner, though. If you guys remember, minor spoiler, the last episode that aired, which was episode 10, I believe, Beta fought, who was it? He fought Grabot. And during that fight, every time the Beta swung the hammer, the chassis would, it has magnets on it, so the chassis would effectively glue itself down to the ground, lock itself in place, and then fire the hammer, which was, yes, it was powerful. Why is that a problem? It means that unless the team has a way to switch off the electromagnets manually and just fire the hammer, which I believe they can, there's a chance that, and strategy-wise, the fact that Beta has a option to effectively only be able to fire the hammer when they're stationary, it locks them in place, that's a huge handicap for them. Now, granted, I personally think that chances are the team does have a way to turn that feature on and off, but if they don't, they shouldn't even have that feature to begin with. Because Beta is the type of, hammer bots in general need to be mobile and hit the opponent when they're pinned, but also, if an opening happens and you can hit your opponent while you're moving, take that opportunity and run with it. And if, again, this is just a big if Beta cannot fire the hammer unless they're remaining still with electromagnets locking them down, Ribbot is, they're never going to land a single shot on Ribbot the whole fight. And Ribbot's going to uppercut them all over the place. I know for a fact that Ribbot is going to be lower than Beta with the vertical spinner. However, again, if Beta actually lands a few hits on Ribbot, that could be good if John Reed will ever fire the hammer. The problem is, as much as I honestly would like to see Beta progress and maybe fight Tombstone later, I don't think that John Reed is going to fire the darn hammer. And because I don't believe John Reed is going to fire the darn hammer, I'm going to have to give Ribbot this fight. So I say that Ribbot moves on. Now we have Black Dragon versus Slamo. Oh boy. Guys, this is a fight that is really hard for me because I like both of these bots a lot. Black Dragon was the bot that possibly impressed me the most next to Death Roll and Hydra last season. They are an incredibly durable egg beater bot that has many interchangeable wedges, and this season multiple interchangeable drum styles, and they're very well driven, they're very, very durable and very aggressive, they're just a great bot. Slamo and Craig Danby, thank goodness Craig Danby was able to finally get some wins in Battlebots. I'm really, really happy for him, everybody's happy for him. In my opinion, he made some dumb decisions in his last fight, in his last preseason fight, So he went 2-1 instead of 3-0, but still, though, he made it into the main tournament with a couple of solid wins. One against Pain Train, and then one against, who was it, War Easy, which was not televised, but I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they did awesome based on the clips that I have seen. So, Black Dragon versus Slamo. This is going to be another case of Kraken versus Black Dragon, I think. It's going to go one way or another. It's either going to be Kraken versus Black Dragon, or Claw Viper versus Black Dragon. That's how it's going to go. Either Craig Danby drives a perfect game in this, makes it really, really difficult for Black Dragon to do anything to him, and manages to control him the majority of the fight and win a decision, or Black Dragon gets right underneath Slamo and pulls a Claw Viper, just tears him apart. And I don't know what's going to happen there. This is a straight 50-50 for me personally. It could go either way. So, me just tossing a coin, I'm going to give it to Black Dragon this time. But again, I am literally tossing a coin. I do not know. I'm going to pretend right now that Black Dragon goes forward. But again, I do not know. Then we have Mad Catter versus Tombstone for the last fight. I don't know the order of these fights when they air, but Mad Catter Tombstone is here on the February 18th episode, which is half of the round of 32. Here's an interesting thing here. So Ray Billings did manage to sneak his way into the round of 32. Goodness, I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but my PC wants me to optimize it. I am so sorry for you guys' ears, because that was really, really loud in my ears. I'm not sure how you guys heard that. So anyway, before, as I was saying before I got interrupted just then, Mad Catter did really, really good in the main season, went 3-0, had one good knockout against Fusion, had a well-deserved judge's decision against Ribbot, and managed to pull a Surgeon General on Malice, which was amazing. Malice stood perfectly upright in that fight. So, Mad Catter versus Tombstone. This is going to be an interesting one. Ray Billings managed to sneak back into the round of 32, despite the fact that he went 1-2 in the main season. Now, this is going to be an interesting one, guys, and it depends entirely on if Ray Billings decides to be smart or not. In my opinion, Ray Billings is going to be very smart now that he knows, listen, he is on the ropes at this point. He had a really bad start this season. He had a devastating loss against Endgame. He had a devastating loss against Scorpios. He had one gimme fight against Slapbox. Tombstone is not in good shape. So, I think Ray Billings is going to do everything he can to stay alive and win. He's not playing around anymore. He's going to get serious. So I think Ray Billings is going to go with the S7 Tool Steel bar for this fight, and he's going to go in Mad Catter with that. It's shorter range and has a thicker bar. It's going to be able to absorb everything Mad Catter has to offer in theory. Here's the thing, guys, and this could be a potential spoiler. I'm not entirely sure. It may or may not be. So, in the natural, I see Mad Catter wiping the floor with Tombstone, because Mad Catter is a vertical spinner with a wedge, feeding wedge on it. It is very similar to Bite Force, which, as you guys know, basically one-shot killed Tombstone last season. Endgame is a vertical spinner with a wedge, also killed Tombstone this season. Bombshell was a vertical spinner with a wedge, also beat Tombstone in 2018. Vertical spinner with a wedge is a big, big weakness of Tombstone and designs like his. Let me tell you why I have a hunch that Tombstone might win this fight. Before the season aired, while the filming was still going on, there was an Instagram post that appeared for a short time and I believe was deleted later. It showed Ray Billings going into the arena, and it showed the Black Dragon team with their anti-spinner wedge going into the arena. Think about that for a second. I do not know if that was a real spoiler or not. I do not know if that was real. I mean, I saw it, but I don't know if somebody like fabricated it or they just cut different clips together. But what I do know is Ray Billings did have his black S7 tool steel bar in that shot that I saw. So my guess is that against all odds, Tombstone manages to beat Mad Catter and then fight Black Dragon in the round of 16. Does that happen for sure? I don't know. I really don't. I guess we'll see February 18th, but I do not know. But only because of that one thing, which may or may not be true, my gut tells me I'm going to go with Tombstone for this one, even though all of logic and reality points against it. I want Mad Catter to beat Tombstone personally. I want the team to go all the way, but my gut is telling me go with Tombstone. So I say Tombstone does beat Mad Catter by some bizarre fluke. Maybe Mad Catter dies all of a sudden. I do not know. But I think Tombstone does win this fight. And when I said Mad by bizarre fluke, this is another thing, guys. If you watch the Bounty Hunter episodes, you're going to get spoiled on a million different things. When Mad Catter was in the Bounty Hunter episode, they did have the anti-spinner wedge on. And if you notice, against Rotator, Mad Catter's anti-spinner wedge looked kind of clean. It looked kind of untouched. That tells me that either they have multiple wedges, or they either beat or died by Tombstone in one hit that didn't do any visible damage to them. That's what it tells me. I don't know how accurate that is. That's just a theory of mine, but I'm going to go with Tombstone to win this fight against all logic. I'm going with my gut here. Now let's go to the other side of the bracket, which debuts on February the 25th. Let's start with Bloodsport Gruff. Okay, so Bloodsport really impressed me with how much they improved this season. They have multiple weapon bars, they have multiple configurations, they have wedgelets on the front, which I think helped them a ton, especially in their fight against Scorpios. I did a whole fight analysis on Bloodsport Scorpios, which is going to air later on next week. I'm probably going to post this like Saturday or something. So yeah, it's going to air sometime next week, I think. So Bloodsport has a lot of improvements. They have a great team. They have an amazing driver. They have good strategists on their team, and they know what they're doing. And I picked either them or Uppercut to win the whole season, honestly. They're going up against Gruff. Now, Gruff I feel really bad for, because they had an amazing showing against Hypershock. They did get beaten pretty badly against Whiplash, and then they lost in the most unlucky fight ever against Extinguisher. Most unlucky, because Extinguisher was losing that fight, and then Gruff spontaneously died, and that was really disappointing. So, no wonder Gruff did get into the round of 32, albeit with a very bad ranking, but still they did get in, and good for them. And for once, good on the selection committee for actually getting a bot that should have been in the round of 32 in. Because if Gruff missed the round of 32 because of the nonsense that happened against Extinguisher, that would have made a lot of fans upset. So, Gruff versus Bloodsport. I am really sorry, Gruff. I like you, I like your team. There is no conceivable way I see you beating Bloodsport. Two reasons. One, Gruff's durability this season has been tested even more so than in 2019, and unfortunately Gruff is starting to show some cracks in its armor and stuff. It's not doing as well as it was in 2019, and its durability, reliability are not what they used to be. Second of all, ground clearance. If you guys, well, I do talk about this in the Bloodsport Scorpios video, but the fact that Bloodsport does have wedgelets on it, that effectively helps to counter anti-spinner wedges to an extent. Because now, instead of the wedge getting underneath the blade, jacking it up and causing it to bounce, you're getting underneath the wedge, lifting the wedge higher into the path of your blade, whereupon you'll knock the wedge off, or just land a big hit. Gruff has had some serious ground clearance issues all season long, and Bloodsport's going to get under them if they have to go into a pushing match. Also, the Bloodsport team have been perfect this season about conserving their weapon power, about turning the weapon off before they get slammed into a wall. They've just been amazing, amazing, amazing this season. Sorry, Gruff. I hate to see you go, buddy, but you are not going to beat Bloodsport, I don't think. I put Bloodsport to move on. Next, we have Fusion versus Tantrum. This is interesting, because both bots are 2-1. In my opinion, Tantrum deserves to be here way more than Fusion and should have a higher ranking than him. Why do I say that? Well, let's look at their strength of schedule, shall we? Fusion's first fight was against Mad Catter, which arguably Fusion didn't really have a chance against Mad Catter, in my opinion, just design-wise. And he lost to Mad Catter. His next fight was against Aegis, a bot made that was... oh, goodness. Poor Aegis. Aegis, the design itself is not bad, let me just say that. But the problem with Aegis, though, is Kevlar. The outside is Kevlar, and Fusion just shredded all of it. And so that was kind of a gimme fight for Fusion. And then this fight against Warez, Wareezy, whatever you want to call it, that was also kind of a gimme fight. And I'll do a fight analysis on that at some point, and I'll explain why I believe that Wareezy, effectively has one of the worst drivers I have ever seen. I know I said Extinguisher has one of the worst drivers I've ever seen, but I think that the Wareezy driver took the cake, in my opinion. Again, I'll do an analysis on that at some point. That's probably going to be a rant video. So, Fusion, yes, they had some very, very destructive hits against both Wareezy and also Aegis, and they had a pretty explosive loss against Mad Catter. But still, though, two of their fights, in my opinion, were gimme fights. Then we have Tantrum. I know that their record is 2-1, but in my opinion, their real record should be 3-0. Because they were winning 110% against Valkyrie before they spontaneously died. And then they, what was their next fight against? Adam 94. They beat the heck out of poor Adam 94, and then they also beat the heck out of Gamma 9 and brutalized both of them. And Tantrum, the driver of Tantrum, he is such an aggressive driver. Tantrum is fast, it's agile, it's nimble, it's a tiny little bot that has a surprising amount of power in it. One thing that I personally don't like about the new Tantrum this season is the fact that their anti-spinner wedge is so tiny. That, I think, was a big downgrade from 2019 when they had this big, beefy 2015 Bite Force looking wedge. But that's okay, though, because Tantrum is still an amazing bot. I see no feasible way Fusion is going to leave this fight alive. Why do I say that? Fusion is going... okay, with the exception of the Aegis fight, which was pretty much a gimme. Fusion effectively died shortly after its early collisions with Mad Catter, and also with Wareezy, also. Fusion has so much weapon power in it, and it has two weapons also, that it's really, really easy for their motors to burn out and for them to just combust. And against a bot like Tantrum, that's going to be difficult for them to deal with such an aggressive bot. So, in my personal opinion, unless Tantrum spontaneously dies like they did against Valkyrie, no way they're going to lose this fight. This is Tantrum's fight to lose, and Fusion is going to be hard-pressed to do anything besides land one gigantic hit and then die in this fight. Sorry, Fusion fans, I'm going with Tantrum for this one. Then we have Sawblade versus Kraken. First off, I just want to say I am really, really happy for the Kraken team that they got into the tournament. Yes, they went 1-2 this season, but they had perhaps, in my opinion, the most solid bad record of anybody this season next to Rotator. They deserved to win so badly in those fights, and they put on such a good show. I'm really, really glad that the selection committee made a good decision for once and got Kraken in. Unfortunately, it means they have to fight against Sawblade. Kraken is so dead in this fight, guys. This is because Sawblade is probably, I believe, is going to be lower than Kraken. He's faster than Kraken. Kraken doesn't really have much to grab onto with Sawblade. Jameson Go's not going to play around in this fight. I do not even think he's going to be nice to them and use the saw instead of the hammer saw. I think he's going to go in full power and cave in Kraken's head, and it's just going to be an ugly, ugly fight, guys. And I think Kraken is very much dead. But I am glad, though, that Kraken did get into the main season, top 32. Great to them. Great to have them here. Sawblade's going to wipe the floor with them, unfortunately. Then we have a fight that I don't really want to talk about much. And here's why. Many of you guys may know, if you've watched my channel for a long time, that I am not a fan whatsoever of this spot here. I understand that they're popular. I understand that they were very effective in 2019. I personally don't like their name, and also, they had a really, really bad preseason, and I personally would put bots like P1 over them getting in. Now, let's talk about Scorpios real quick. Scorpios had a really tough fight against Bloodsport in their first fight. Still performed good, though, and they were aggressive. They were mostly durable. They lost that fight, then they fought Perfect Phoenix, beat them. Then they killed Tombstone in a very, very impressive way, and I think it's well-deserved that Scorpios got in. Here's why I think Scorpios is going to win this fight, guys. It's because if you watch the Bounty Hunter episode again, lots and lots of spoilers if you watch the Bounty Hunter episode, Scorpios has an anti-vertical spinner configuration. Yay! Seriously, guys, Scorpios, one of their biggest weaknesses before was they didn't have much of a defense against vertical spinners. And especially like a bot like this, where the discs are pointing further out, they have a longer reach. The fact that Scorpios has an attachment, which they attach these long prongs on the top of the bot as well, I think it's going to help keep their opponent away from them, and it's going to allow them to control the whole fight. This is going to be a really, really tough fight, guys, and there's a good chance Scorpios could lose, but I think the Scorpios is going to win this fight. And here's the thing, guys. For those of you who may be salty that this robot, if this robot does not beat Scorpios, there's a good chance that we may see Sawblade versus Scorpios, which is a fight people have wanted for several seasons now. So, yeah, if you guys are salty about this spot I don't like winning, there's a good chance that this could happen. And if so, everybody wants it. So I predict that Scorpios is going to win this fight, although it is going to be tough, though. Then we have Copperhead versus Mammoth. What do you guys think I'm going to say? I mean, really. Be honest, guys. What do you think I'm going to say? Copperhead, the bot that decapitated Gigabyte, killed P1 in 2 hits, and also defeated Black Dragon in very, very destructive fashion, sending them flying everywhere, versus a very well-controlled pipe frame. I'm not going to say anything more except that Copperhead is going to win this fight. Because if I go into all the ways that Copperhead can win this fight, we're going to be here forever. We're going to be here all day, because Mammoth has so many different ways that Copperhead can break it. And Copperhead is so, so powerful. One clip on the wheels, one clip on the fork, one clip anywhere, and Mammoth could be dead. I do not see Mammoth winning this fight at all, and this is basically a gimme fight for Copperhead. Also, Mammoth made the top 32. I'm sure that plenty of you guys are happy about that. And honestly, Mammoth did pretty decently in 2019. He had a great match against Huge for sure. And yeah, they're 2-1. They didn't have the best win, I think, against, Deadlift. Amazing fight against Huge. Got destroyed against Hypershock. I don't know. I think the P1 deserved it way more than Mammoth did. I'm going to bring up P1 every so often because I very strongly believe P1 should have been in the top 32, but anyway, I think Copperhead's going to win this fight. Let's move on. Now, Lockjaw versus Shatter. This is a really interesting fight, guys, and this is going to go to a judge's decision, I think. I think Lockjaw is going to beat Shatter, mostly because Lockjaw is going to simply by drive style alone, be more nimble than Shatter is. Shatter is the type of bot that, arguably, it is well driven, and I believe the forks it has are decently low to the ground. However, omni-wheel drive bots are difficult to control, and Shatter's hammer, yes guys, I know that Shatter's hammer did poke some holes in Captain Shredderator's top armor. That was polycarbonate, that was not really durable top armor. I'll just say that. Donald Hudson and the Lockjaw is going to drive circles around Shatter, get to the sides, probably flip it over a few times. It's going to be a tough fight though, because I don't think Shatter is going to die easily at all. But I am definitely going to give this fight to Donald Hudson and Lockjaw, although I do think it could go to a decision, because Shatter is just not going to die. It's going to be a really, really interesting back and forth match to watch, but Lockjaw's going to win this fight, I think. Now let's talk about Endgame versus Perfect Phoenix. Oh my goodness, Endgame. So here's my opinion of Endgame this season. They came in 2018, and after their first fight they said, yeah, we'll take Tombstone. Then they had a rough 2018 season, the rest of it. They came back in 2019, got their butt kicked in most of their fights, unfortunately. Then they come in 2020, and they instantly kill Tombstone. Instantly made them a favorite of most people. And then they lose to Bloodsport, a bot that in theory they should have had no problem dealing with. Because, you know, vertical spinner with a wedge versus a horizontal spinner, basically a gimme fight. However, Endgame did lose that fight, and Bloodsport got the win. Then they fought Hypershock, and proved why vertical spinners with forks are one of the most dominant designs nowadays. And they threw Hypershock out of the arena in similar fashion to how they KO'd Tombstone. So, Endgame is a very impressive bot that should not be trifled with. It is a very, very powerful bot that is reasonably durable, well-driven, and I think it has a really, really good chance to go far once it gets through Perfect Phoenix. As for Perfect Phoenix, as far as this bot goes, I really, really like Perfect Phoenix. I really do. It was built from, it used to be called Brutality back when Paul Ventimiglia made it a long time ago. I think he made it way before the Battlebots 2009 championships where he won with it. But Paul Ventimiglia built Brutality, won with it in Battlebots back then. So this is, the bot itself that you're looking at is a former champion, keep that in mind. And it's driven by Tyler Wen, I believe that's his name. And he's an amazing driver in his own right. He competed at, what was it, Bugglebots with Doombot, I think. He impressed me so much with his driving. He was incredible there. He knows so much for being an 11-year-old on this. And he is just youngest team captain, amazing driver. And I wanted to see him do well so badly this season. Unfortunately, Tyler, I'm sorry. I think that your tournament most likely came to an end right here against Endgame. Granted, Perfect Phoenix is pretty durable, and it does have the blue bar, which is a shorter, thicker bar that should be able to absorb more impact from Endgame. I don't see Perfect Phoenix winning this fight, and I wish that it could because I like Perfect Phoenix so much, but I think that Endgame's going to beat them, unfortunately. So, again, barring a fluke, I highly think that Perfect Phoenix is going to lose to Endgame. But, you know what though? It's great that Perfect Phoenix got into the round of 32. And, you know, hey, we got into the round of 32, Tyler. Congratulations on that. And, yeah, you have made it further than a lot of other bots did. A lot of really, really good bots who made it a lot further than they did. So congratulations, Tyler. You got into the round of 32. I don't think you're going to beat Endgame, unfortunately. So I'm going to give this one to Endgame. Then, let's see. Okay, we have the last fight of the round of 32. And also the last fight I'm going to talk about in this almost 45-minute video so far that I've done. Guys, I do not apologize for how long this video is. I had a lot to talk about. So now we have Jackpot versus Rotator. Two bots that definitely deserve to be in the top 32, and two bots with very, very different records. Jackpot went unbeaten this season, had, in my opinion, a very fortunate and the lucky win against SubZero before tearing Ghost Raptor apart and beating Lockjaw, which I did not expect at all. That was very impressive. The best thing about Jackpot, I think, is that this, by robot combat standards, this bot was built cheap. It was built for like $3,000-$4,000 as far as I know. And it was built mostly from just different parts the team was able to find. They were able to find them cheaper. And Jackpot shows that you don't need no $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to make a bot that is good, powerful, destructive, can win fights, and is a good competitor. Because Jackpot is effectively a bot on a budget that has really impressed all of us, I think. It's a very, very powerful bot. Decently durable so far. His durability hasn't been tested all that much, but I think it's a pretty durable bot, at least from what we can see. And it's just a great bot overall. And it's going up against Rotator, a bot that I wanted to do so well this season. They had a controversial loss against Beta. Then they had a very, very impressive and tough fight against Valkyrie. Barely lost that fight, I think, before they defeated Big Dill in... they defeated Big Dill pretty easily. Whew, this is going to be an interesting fight, guys, and I honestly don't know what's going to happen here. On one hand, this could go the exact same route as Death Roll Rotator, where one big impact from Jackpot flips the Rotator over, and they just keep on hitting him over and over and over, maybe even taking the spinner off. And it'll last the whole 3 minutes, but Jackpot wins those just by sheer damage. Or it can go the other way, and that other way is Rotator's a horizontal spinner, he's an undercutter. Jackpot doesn't really have a proper wedge. They have their double discs sticking far out at the bot. They're more of a ranged vertical spinner, as I like to call it. Problem with this is you don't have hardly any chance against a horizontal spinner in general. I do bring this up in my Perfect Phoenix versus Adam 94 review, which we'll also be posting later on. But bots with double disc setups that don't have a real solid wedge in front of them, really, really bad idea going up against a horizontal spinner of any kind. And this is going to be interesting, guys. Again, it's going to go one way or another, and I personally think Rotator is going to win this fight. Just because Jackpot does... Two reasons. One, Jackpot does not have a proper wedge, and number two, Jackpot has high ground clearance, and the wheels undercutters such as Rotator are going to be able to get to. And three, unfortunately, Jackpot is not very fast. That is going to be a big downside they have to work with. So unless the Jackpot team drives perfectly and gets just the right hits on Rotator, I do not see Jackpot winning this fight, unfortunately. It's great that they were able to come and compete this season. They did amazing for such a budget bot. They impressed all of us, and it was amazing to have them here, and I hope they compete in the future. I don't think they're going to win this fight. I pick Rotator to win this fight, guys. So, guys, that's going to be it for my overview and predictions of the Battlebots Season 5. Round of 32 bracket, my predictions and stuff. Again, guys, these are just my predictions, my personal opinions on these fights. I know that this has been a crazy long video for you guys. Again, so many of these fights that I mentioned, they could go either way. Not all of them are certain. But it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens, guys. And also, after the actual episode's debut, and after we actually know who made it, I'll do another one of these, I hope to, showing my predictions of, say, the top 16, and then also the quarterfinals going up to the grand final. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, also consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video.